there's just one thing. Well, there are several aspects to that. One is that I'm not too keen on clitoris reduction operations on American newborns either.
Does that happen?
Yes, they do happen. Look them up. But the other thing is that when it comes to circumcision of women, to subincision, to infibulation, there are so many different kinds. Again, it's a bit like the veil. Pay attention and see what's really happening. For example, Sudanese women showing up for reversal of infibulation in London. The surgeon discovered that the clitoris was underneath the labia. The labia had been sewn closed over the clitoris. And that itself is also interesting because for many women, direct pressure and direct contact with the clitoris is actually off-putting. And one of the things that was happening by the infibulation was that the clitoris was being protected and the actual nature of the stimulation was changed. None of this is easy. And in fact, we now have women in America having operations to have the size of the labia minora reduced. Why do you think they're doing that? Because they think they are unsightly. All you have to do is look in any compendium of surgical procedures on women and you will see a whole set of illustrations of labia reduction operations.
Okay,
now the fact is that these operations from one side of Africa to the other occupy a whole spectrum, and they are carried out by women on women. And when I've asked men about it in places like Ethiopia, whether sex with infibulated women was better than sex with women without, they actually didn't know which was which, because they don't look, which is something else you have to consider.
Okay. I think we might move away from that particular subtopic now onto some broader things. I'd like to invite any of you who have questions to hop up and grab those microphones. I have a couple of questions that were submitted beforehand that I'd like to throw to you. One is from Anna Palmer, who says, I'm interested in the panel's observations about the pace of change. So many people seem to think women have arrived, and yet there's ample evidence to the contrary. What are the strongest forces that sustain patriarchy? Is it in human nature to put down other, whether it be women, minorities, people of difference? Is this primal? Is it in our DNA and hardwired into our psyches? Interesting question, I think. Who'd like to pick that up? The idea of women being other, that's why they've suffered at the hands of men.
Well, that's pure Simone de Beauvoir, which I've never found wildly helpful, because I don't mind being other. You can be the same, I'll be other.
Does anyone else want to comment on that question?
I'm sorry.
No, you go. Please go ahead.
Just very briefly, this question of why do they keep doing this to us, sort of millennium after millennium, is of course very haunting, especially if you love men and you don't want to think that there's some sort of satanic flaw in them. But I think there's one aspect which I wouldn't say it's hardwired, but it's very interesting to take on board, which I didn't realize till I did the research for the vagina book, which is that there's a very strong connection between the vagina and the brain. And so orgasm releases chemicals in the female brain that makes women confident and self-determining and optimistic. And so that made